Welcome to Team Building Cultures, the podcast designed to deliver tools and tips for improving team communication, collaboration, and fostering a culture where teams thrive. Now, here's your host, Beverly Hathorn, owner of Strategic HR Consultants.
Hello, listeners, and thank you so much for joining another episode of Team Building Cultures. I am your host, Beverly Hathorn, owner of Strategic HR Consultants. Today, I'll be speaking with a very esteemed guest, Mr. Evan Klein. Evan is the president of Satrix Solutions. For more than 25 years, Evan Klein has been an enthusiastic champion for voice of customer-driven change. He specializes in coaching business leaders on the customer and employee-focused strategies that lead to increased profitability and sustained competitive advantage. It's one of my favorite topics. Evan founded Satrix Solutions in 2008 to empower businesses to accelerate growth and increase valuation by improving customer retention, expansion, referrals, and sales win rates. The company's growing list of clients benefit from expert guidance, robust, unfiltered feedback, straight arrow shooting, actionable recommendations, and data that can be relied on to guide important strategic decisions. That's wonderful, Evan. I'm really excited to hear how you're going to talk to us about factors that contribute to employee engagement, how to measure employee engagement, because I think a lot of leaders don't know how to do that, and how to improve employee engagement. So, yeah, thanks, Evan, for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you, Beverly. Great to be here, and thanks for having me.
Okay, great. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. So one of my first questions is, Satrix Solutions, how did you come up with that name?
Oh, good question. So that's 15 years ago or so. And that was an interesting exercise. So I'm not a serial entrepreneur, as they say. This is my first and only business I've ever founded. And coming up with a name was more challenging than I thought it would be. Went through a number of iterations. Actually, the key determinant was finding a URL that was available at the time. So blended two words, satisfaction and metrics, and that's how I came up with Satrix. And again, the www was available, so we picked it.
Awesome. And I agree, when you're trying to pick a company name or business name, it is not as easy as one would think. And then often when you come up with the name, that URL is already taken. That happened in my case. So, that's not as easy as people may think. Very creative, combining the two aspects of what you do to get your business name. That's great.
Awesome.
So let's talk about employee engagement. What are some of the factors that lead to employee engagement?
Oh, wow. Big question. Quite a few, as I'm sure you're quite familiar with on your own. I think a few things that stand out. First of all, employees want to feel connected to the business that they work with, right? They want to believe in the overall purpose and the mission of the business. So that's important, that sense of pride. Also secondarily, employees want their voices to be heard, like all of us do. In sort of every aspect of our life, they want to feel that their opinions are valued and that their input helps guide decision making. So that's something we found is quite important in the research that we've done. Also, that they want, of course, confidence in leadership. I'm sure, Beverly, you're familiar with this research that Gallup has done on this, that the satisfaction of a team member is very highly correlated with their satisfaction with their manager. So that's something that's of great importance. And in general, they want to have that confidence in employee leadership broadly. Also, strong reward and recognition practices are very important. Those are big drivers of employee engagement. And so I think, the other thing is employees don't want to be micromanaged, right? I think we all feel that same way. We want some level of autonomy. And so, that goes back to how you interact with your manager and, the company's philosophy on culture. That also has a big driving factor of employee engagement. So those are just a few that come to mind.
And I am perfectly in line with you on all of those. In particular, I'll just work from the bottom up, the no micromanaging. If you vetted your employees and then you hired them and you trained them to do the job, why are you then still there in the middle? So, let your employees have some autonomy, trust them to do a good job, and that frees the leader up to go and do more of their job, to maybe expand on what they do. So I think the no micromanagement is really, really big. And also being heard. Employees want to be heard. They want to feel a part of the business, not that they're just another cog in the wheel. I've got some ideas. I've got some thoughts about how things go on around here. Will anybody listen to me? So I think those are all the ones that you mentioned are very important. Those are my kind of like my top two. So how do you go about measuring your employee engagement? Let's say you don't know how many employees are engaged or not. Now that we know what it takes, how do you go about measuring that?
Yeah, well, you're not going to be surprised at my response. I mean, one of the best ways is simply to ask them, right? So, and that's, some of the work that we do here at Satrix Solutions is that we field employee surveys on behalf of our clients. And that's how you get a lot of great insights into employee sentiment, levels of satisfaction, levels of engagement. It's just to ask the right questions, provide them a safe place to share their candid feedback. So there's a number of ways to do that. I'm sure we're going to talk about. The other thing over the years that's much more prominent now, of course, in the internet age, is that there's a lot of feedback that people leave online. And that's true of employees and their organizations they work with as well. Glassdoor, I'm sure most of your audience is familiar with, is another way to see. It's obviously not a representative sample necessarily, but it's a view into the minds of some of the employees that work at that company. So, we keep an eye on Glassdoor. We advise our clients to do the same. And then, also there's ways of deriving or understanding employee engagement by analyzing your data. If you're a more mature company, you can look at, for example, productivity levels, quality of work, whether your employees are meeting deadlines. Those are all indicators of employee engagement. But I think far and away the best is simply to provide them a venue to share that feedback and to gather those insights in a confidential way through an online survey, for example.
Yeah, and it's great if the surveyor is a neutral party. I think employees kind of feel a little more comfortable expressing themselves, because even though the company might give the organization might give a survey and say, oh, we won't know the results or whatever, you can identify certain people by their responses on the survey. So I think that it's great that a company like yourself can come in and be a middle neutral party that helps employees to feel a little bit safer. So we were talking about the surveys, and what are some of the ways that you implement the surveys and decide what questions you're going to ask on the surveys? So do you talk with the company and see what problems they're having and then kind of decide on the questions through that? Or do you have like a general base of questions that you compound your survey from?
It's more the first one, Beverly. It's, every survey is a little bit different, and that's justifiable, right? Because the businesses have, slightly different cultures, things that are important to them, important to their employees, different makeup of their employee base. So there's a lot of collaboration, a lot of discovery process, if you will, where we interview important stakeholders at the business first and get an understanding of what they feel is important, what they identify maybe as the drivers of employee engagement. So yeah, a lot of our work is tailored. There are, of course, some questions that are consistent across many of the surveys we do. I'm sure we're going to talk about employee net promoter score, for example, and that is one question that is consistent in a lot of the surveys that we field. But for the rest of the questions and a lot of those discussions back and forth with the company, it's tailored. There's a lot of customization of the survey questionnaire. And the the design of the survey instrument is, undoubtedly one of the most important determinants of whether your employee engagement or employee survey program is going to be successful. That's something that we strongly advise companies, even if they're not going to work with us, do your homework, make sure you're adhering to best practices in survey design, because a survey that's not properly designed, that maybe doesn't ask the questions in the right manner, doesn't have the right scales, doesn't have the right order, isn't fielded at the right time, you risk getting bad data, which is inherently a serious problem. So yeah, the survey design process is of great importance, and we do a lot of back and forth with our clients to come up with the right instrument.
Awesome. Yeah, because if the data's not good, then it's not usable. And if you don't ask the right questions, you're not going to get the right answers. I can't tell you how many times the kids say, I said, well, why didn't you tell me that? And they're like, you didn't ask me. So that's not what you asked me, Mom. That's not what you asked me, Gammy. So, it's important to ask the right questions, and it's good to hear that you are flexible in your surveys and that you tailor them to an individual company. So, but I'm wondering about the data. What are some of the things that skew, for lack of a better word, the data?
Yeah, and one of them, the more common one, is simply low participation rates, low response rates, right?
Okay.
So if you can't get your employees to respond to the survey at a high rate, then you're not going to have data that is representative and statistically valid. And that's a problem when a company wants to make decisions, as they should, based on the insights gleaned from the survey. You have to have strong, reliable, representative, statistically valid data. And that requires a high participation rate. So that's one of the challenges we see with many companies when they come to us, is that, they just can't get employees to respond to the survey. And really that happens is because possibly the company asked previously in the form of a survey. They, fielded a survey in the past, and then the employees saw nothing done with it. So of course they feel at this point, why should I bother taking the time if, the company's not going to act on any of the feedback that I provide? So that's a big one. The other one we were just talking about, which is, not asking questions in the right way, that can generate bad data. And then the one we touched on earlier, whereas if employees don't feel that, confident that their feedback will be confidential, will be anonymous, that's a big problem as well, right? Because then they're just not going to provide that candid, forthright feedback. And then you're getting, again, it's bad data, right? Because they're not being honest with their assessment. They may be saying things in a nicer or a softer way because they feel some concern that their feedback might be tied back to them. So you have to give them a safe place. You have to make sure that they're confident in the confidentiality and the anonymity of their feedback. Ask the questions in the right way, get high response rates. Generally, that's going to get you good data quality.
Yeah, and I would think employee engagement needs to be at a certain level, even for the surveys about employee engagement, especially if you get answers, if your respondents are all the angry employees, and the data comes back that, 99% of your employees are disengaged, that would be really disappointing and shattering. So, and I say sometimes that people only talk about the trains that are late. Sometimes it's only the irate or upset or angry people that respond to these type things. I experienced that initiating customer satisfaction surveys for previous corporations, and sometimes we only got responses from customers who were unhappy. So kind of threw the data off a little bit. So, and I would think that you have maybe you bump your surveys up against other vehicles, like maybe NPS scores, or maybe even employee churn and, attendance rates and things like that. Would you say that those are all indicators of low employee engagement?
Yeah, absolutely. We do a lot of employee net promoter score, some pulse oriented surveys, right? Where it's maybe just a handful of questions every quarter, something like that. We also do, on behalf of our clients, exit interviews and as well as stay interviews with high performing employees. So you get really good insights into, why your high performing employees, love working at your organization, and conversely, why folks are leaving the organization and going elsewhere. So those all together, of course, and companies don't have to do them all. I don't want to suggest that all these programs need to be in place, but they all offer a little bit of a different view, different insights into whether generally there's employee engagement or maybe disengagement that could lead to higher levels of attrition or low performance, if you will.
Yeah, but that's good to hear that there's other ways other than just, maybe an engagement survey, that there's other ways that you can get the data and maybe have somebody combine it all and interpret the data that you've gotten together with that. So let's talk a little bit more about other areas of employee engagement, like what can leaders do to let's say you've taken these surveys and you've got the data and you've got the NPS scores, you've even done some exit interviews and some stay interviews, and then you've got the information to move forward. How do we go about that? Okay, we've got all the information. Now what's the next step?
Yeah, well, what we refer to it as closing the loop. Actually, this is nomenclature or language that's came about largely because of Net Promoter Score and employee Net Promoter Score. And it simply means circling back with your employees. And that can be done in a number of ways, right? First and foremost, of course, the leadership should acknowledge the feedback that they received. They should be candid about whether, there were complaints that were, consistent across the number of their employees. So it's that transparency and visibility, and that level of communication is of great importance with employee engagement surveys or any kind of employee survey, where you're committing to the organization that you're acting on the feedback. You're going to actually review it and do something with it, right? That hopefully will benefit employees and improve employee satisfaction, employee engagement. And I think that's first and foremost, one of the more important elements. And then there's also opportunities for different division heads or different managers, different individuals running different businesses to follow up with their teams on a more of a, maybe not one-to-one, but one-to-many basis. So it's not necessarily just coming from leadership, it's also coming more from your direct manager. Again, because you can slice and dice the feedback from your employees in so many different ways, and without identifying the individuals, you can look at different groups, different teams, different divisions, different offices, and spot where there might be a pain point or a frustration that they're feeling that's maybe a little bit unique. Not uncommon at all, right? For one department or one division of an organization to feel slightly differently than others. So acknowledging that at a more sort of divisional level is of great importance as well. But it really comes back to, as it does with all feedback programs, circling back and doing something with the feedback that you've received to demonstrate clearly that you're committed to this continuous improvement endeavor.
Yeah, awesome. That sounds really good, especially when you mention other organizations. You might have accounting over here who's perfectly happy with their jobs, but you've got the repair techs that are completely unhappy. In my experience, working in telecommunications, our repair techs were consistently unhappy because when they went out, even though they were out to like save the day, quote unquote, customers were angry about things that occurred prior to the repair tech arriving and things that had happened in the past, i.e. this is third time this is went out, or, I've been calling for a week and couldn't get anybody, and then the poor repair tech has to, one, do his job, but number two, to kind of take that berating or whatever and hopefully turn that customer around. But sometimes it's, it's just a loss. All he can do is just fix the physical problem. So I can see where certain organizations or certain parts of the organization may have different scores than others. So
Yeah.
what are some of the other things that we can do to increase employee engagement other than maybe what we find out on the survey?
Yeah, I mean, one of the big ones that stands out to me is leading by example, right? I mean, this is something that all leaders in the organization need to do, and that, actually walk the walk, not just talk the talk. So that's certainly an important one. And I think, we touched on this earlier, where we find a lot of our clients, there's not transparency in what's going on. There's a lot of silos and transparency about important issues that are happening in the business. So that's definitely another one. And I think giving employees a voice doesn't necessarily have to take the form of an online survey. You can give employees a voice in a lot of different ways. For example, one of the things that a number of our clients are doing, we call it a championship team, where it's a cross-sectional group of employees that are committed to an issue. Example is customer experience, right? So a lot of our clients have championship teams that focus on customer experience, and they're very passionate. They want the customers to be happy. They know it affects the business in a positive way. So these are sort of, quasi senior level people that meet on a monthly basis and then share their ideas back to management on things that should be improved. And you can have a championship team for a number of different initiatives or areas of focus. And that's a way, again, of giving employees a voice and having them make a difference in the business without necessarily fielding a survey.
Awesome. Yeah, that I like the idea of that championship team. I've been a part of such a team. We just kind of called it quality control or whatever, where we were trying to improve the customer satisfaction, and we would meet and review the surveys that we received and try to work out where the gaps were, where the hiccups are in our process, and what training we need to implement to help our employees represent better, and just things like that. Yeah. So yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
that's a great idea. So what are some of the things that let's say Satrix Solutions comes into my company, and I know you're going to help me implement surveys and the such, but what else can you help us with?
It is largely survey-based or interview-based work that we're doing. And so, the way we position ourselves, again, that independent third party, that we're neutral and that we can offer employees a safe place. And then, our skill sets around design and execution of a program, and then importantly, analysis and reporting. That's something that we haven't touched on, where anytime you're fielding any kind of survey, whether it's a customer survey, employee survey, or anything else, there tends to be, people are looking at the data and the responses through a certain lens, right? If you're working at the company, you're passionate about what you're doing, you have a lot of information about obviously what's happening inside the organization. The potential is that you may interpret that feedback differently than a neutral third party might. Something that's commonly referred to as confirmation bias. So one of the things that we offer as a third party is you remove or eliminate that confirmation bias. We're able to look at the data through an unbiased lens and, just speak to the facts. What is the data telling us? And so, that's something that our clients appreciate about the relationships that we have with them. And we're doing employee net promoter scores we talked about. Employee engagement surveys. Also, one program that is popular and not talked about as often as I think it should be, are interdepartmental surveys. So what that is simply asking employees about their experience interfacing with a department within the company. So in other words, that's a driver of employee engagement as well. If you feel that you can't rely on your colleagues to help you, to support you, right? If you go to HR as an example, and you don't feel like you're getting the feedback or insights or support that you need, that's going to frustrate you. So what we talk about is that, a lot of companies commit to customer experience excellence, but then in their own organization, they're not living by that, right? Their teams don't help each other, they don't support each other, they're not responsive to each other. And so that interdepartmental survey is a way to ask employees about their experience with departments within the company. And those department heads can use that feedback to determine where there might be improvement opportunities. So that's an important program that I think a lot of companies have an opportunity to enact.
Oh, yeah, I would think that would be very, very important because everything kind of flows downstream. Nobody really works in a silo. We all must collaborate together. We each have our pieces, but when I'm doing my piece, I need to consider the piece of the person who sent that to me, as well as the piece of the person who I'm going to send this downstream to. So that collaboration is really critical to provide a seamless customer experience, but also a seamless employee experience. If we're all working together and I know I can count on the people to my left and to my right, that kind of helps make my position a little easier and a little simpler. So yeah, that's great. That's definitely something I would encourage the listeners to maybe think about, is those interdepartmental surveys. Yeah, that sounds like a wonderful option.
Yeah, no, that's very well said. And I think one other that we also work with our clients on is the employee opinion survey. And this also speaks to the fact that, a lot of companies invite feedback from their customers, but then they don't look internally for feedback from their employees. In other words, your customers may know what frustrates them and what they'd like to see improved, but employees have a point of view of that as well. So, it's kind of that old school suggestion box, right? Back in the day, what do you think we should be doing differently? What obstacles do you face? What hurdles are you experiencing in the work that you're doing that maybe is preventing you from delivering the best experience to our customers? So that employee opinion survey is quite simply, okay, team, tell us what you think we should be doing better. Tell us what processes that might have been enacted for good reasons are not working out the way that they should. And so if you offer that anonymous, again, that safe place for them to share their feedback, it's a treasure trove of information. These are people who are in the thick of it day in and day out. Don't forget to ask them what they think.
Absolutely. I'm 100% in alignment with you on that, because I've often seen situations where somebody is fixing A and B when it's really C and D that's broken, and you're fixing A and B. And as an employee, I'm saying that's not it. The problem is here. And your employees know where the hitches and the glitches are, because to your point, they're right in the thick of it. They do it every day. They do this, they encounter this problem every day. So they know that the part that you've decided to fix is not the part that's really causing the problem. So yeah, so that employee feedback is a very valuable tool. All the tools that you've mentioned today are extremely valuable, and I hope our leaders that are listening will definitely take advantage of those. So Evan, do you have anything that you'd like to maybe offer to our listeners today?
Yeah, Beverly, sure. We have office hours that we offer up to anyone who wants to chat with us about our area of expertise. We've touched on a number of them, but if you have questions about your employee surveys, if you are struggling with lower response rates, if you're not getting feedback that you feel is actionable, or in general want to talk about employee engagement or employee feedback, well, let's schedule 30 minutes, complimentary time. Happy to chat and offer best practices and share our vision.
Great, that's wonderful. And how would we reach you for those of us who want to learn more? We want to just see what you're up to, or maybe want to take you up on that offer. How would we reach you?
Yeah, terrific. By email, evan@satrixsolutions.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Evan Klein, obviously with Satrix Solutions, and send me a message there. And, I would also suggest folks check out our website. We like to really contribute to the conversation. So we have pretty robust blog section, a lot of articles on employee feedback, employee engagement, employee net promoter score, as well as some white papers or best practice type documents. So feel free to check that out as well.
Sounds wonderful. That's all very valuable information. And thank you so much for all the nuggets you dropped today and talking with us about net promoter scores and employee engagement and how we can get those employees to take the employee engagement survey. So yeah, this has been a wonderful chat with you today, Evan, and I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Beverly. Great to speak with you.
You too.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Team Building Cultures. We hope we have delivered helpful and enlightening information to help you create your dream team. Join us next time